On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how House Goliath play on the tabletop and what play styles they are well suited to. If you're new to Goliath, this is the episode for you.
Dome Runners TV, your guide to the Underhive and beyond.
Hey there, Scabby Skimmers and Gangers. Crimson Oracle here with another episode of Dome Runners TV, and today we are going to be talking about House Goliath. I have a panel of players who are going to talk a little bit about their experiences with the gang and their approach to building their gangs. And I hope that it's informative and a fun convo for everybody to bear witness to. So without further ado, we're going to head on over to that. And just to add, there are social links for any of the interviewees who provided theirs in the show notes, so do check those out. Give them a follow. They're doing great work. With that, let's chat House Goliath. To talk about playing House Goliath on the tabletop, I have Caleb, Rob, Ed, and Flo. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Caleb?
My name's Caleb. I've been playing Goliath since Necromunda got remade in 2017. They're the first gang I ever played in it. First models I was really proud of painting, and then when House of Chains came about, I was really happy about that, and just fell back into playing him again.
All right, how about you, Rob?
I started playing. I'm Rob. I've got a YouTube digital wastrel if you like to check that out. And yeah, I've been playing Goliath since the 2017 edition came out. I never liked Goliath. I played back in the 90s, so they were my least favourite gang back then, but I started building the models and they were just so much fun to put together. And yeah, I've taken them through a few campaigns and they're just really, really fun and there's so much you can do with them. So great gang.
All right, how about you, Ed?
My name is Ed Burrell. I'm in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Like most here, I started playing with that first Underhive box in 2017, and we had two choices, and I just started with Goliaths and never really looked back. I've dipped my toe into other gangs, but just something about their toughness and ability to stick around really resonated with my personal playstyle. So I super dug it. You have my miniature Instagram, skeleton key _arts, which has got a few of my Goliath pictures, but I actually need to get some more up there because I've got a lot more finished since I started and just haven't been photographing lately.
And Flo?
Hi, my name is Flo. I also started 2017 with the Hive War box when it came out. It was like, like Ed said, the two choices we had, it was the girls or the guys. And I was like, it was the friend of mine. It's like, no, I'll take the big muscle ones. And yeah, the model wise, nice ones. Like this, it took the vibe from the first miniature when they came out. And then I was lost, so I stick with them.
All right. So when it comes to playing Goliath, I think for new players, it helps to kind of have an idea of how each gang plays, so they can kind of get a feel for whether it's something they actually want to kind of invest in. Caleb, what playstyle do you think Goliath gangs do well with?
Personally, I think Goliath works very similar to like Orcs in Warhammer 40k, except rather than a horde, you just have big dudes that are kind of hard to kill. But I think they're very slow, but if you get in the melee, you're always going to win nearly every time. You have better toughness than every other gang, and if you bioengineer your guys, you have even better toughness. So if you do it right, you're nearly unkillable. You just need to find a way to close the gap. So I always find like you need a lot of synergy between your guys. So you need to shoot to pin rather than kill, and then you need to find crafty ways to get your guys to close the distance, because melee, you'll just win.
Right. Rob, what do you think? What attracts people to what's the pull of playing Goliath?
Definitely the close combat prowess, because like a lot of gangs have got really nasty close combat characters in them, like champions, whatever. But with Goliath, like even your baseline gangers have got the ability to like beat up almost anyone on the other side. And yeah, the excellent stats, like the extra strength and toughness and the relatively good armor. Yeah, it just makes them kind of a tanky faction. But one of the problems is that they are fairly slow, so you do have to be quite careful with positioning. So there is kind of a tactical movement element to playing them as well.
For sure. Ed, what do you think?
I mean, these guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. I play either one of two ways, which is like try to get as many Goliaths as I can in my gang, so that I've got some bullies to screen my heavier hitters as they move up into combat. Right, force people to roll if they want to shoot the real threat that's behind them. But then I've also, get into melee, like smash everything you can. But then with gene smithing, you can actually do some stuff where it's you kind of surprise people. So you can make Goliaths a little bit more versatile. There's absolutely a cost to do it, but it can be kind of shocking.
Flo, do you have anything else to kind of expand on that?
Not really. It's like everybody else said. It's they hit you like a freight train. As soon as they reach you in close combat, yeah, good night. And it's mostly over for everyone. And yeah, might use some short range fire in like second line behind your charging guys that you can, like said already, like to pin the ones in front of you and then charge in and win the game.
So, gene smithing is a major component of building a Goliath gang. It is a very large system. It's got a lot of kind of quirky little tricks that you can add to your gang. I'm curious what you guys think the best combos are, and or fit certain thematic ideas for a gang. And is there anything you kind of avoid because it's a little too much? Rob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, one of my favorite, personal favorite things. I've seen a few people do something similar, but it's something that I call the Trash Goblin build. I've done a few conversions. Maybe you can put the pictures up on the screen. But yeah, it's basically you start with a unborn proto Goliath, and then you jack up the movement and then drop all like the strength and toughness, and you just get this like fast moving, low strength and toughness little thing, and it really feels like a niche, and it's also hilarious to have like this little fast moving guy, and you can give him grenades and stuff for maximum hilarity.
It's kind of a Cawdor kind of move to do that.
Yeah. And I think also with with unborn proto Goliaths, you can choose a skill set for when you level up, so you can give them like cunning, so you can do infiltrate, and yeah, there's a lot of crazy things you can plan for.
That's fun. Ed, how about you? What kind of combos for gene smithing work for you, or what kind of themes do you like?
The most common thing, as much as I love Goliath, right? Like I use the unborn quite a bit. Because they're not naturally born Goliaths, they've been chemically altered or whatever. But because and I don't even necessarily use any of the upgrades, just the access to alternate skill paths is where you can throw twists, right? So, like Rob said, infiltrate on a melee champion is nuts. And then if you want a shooter, you can build one with shooting skills. So that's a lot of fun, and then just going through and kind of spiking. Let's see, I think I have Yak Tribe up here. No, I didn't have anything on my last Forge Tyrant, but I did have a Stimmer with Unborn and Cunning traits, or Cunning skills, because your twin renderizers. Yeah, pulverizers, paired pulverizers, and infiltrate terrifies people, and then they tend to maybe they do beat that ganger off the board, but by the time they do, the rest of your guys have had 2 rounds to get up into melee.
Mostly I stick with Netborn for the leader. Nothing, mostly then Prime Specimen, Tyrant's Own, things like that to get him like really mean. So he's like strength 5, toughness 5. Yeah, try to get him. And then with the other gangers and champs, mostly, it depends on what they should do in the game or in the campaign. So my Forge boss, my Forge boss, he's unborn, and then he got fast shot because I have not so much body, so I try to compensate it with shooting twice in one go. It's also depends on the guys I play in the campaign with, so I try to see how can I get the best out of the stuff. Like no special combos I use.
Makes sense. And Caleb, how about you?
Yeah, I think the gene smithing is probably the most powerful ability that like any of the gangs have access to. I think it's just leaps and bounds, just absolutely insane. And personally, I'm a thematic player. I don't really care about winning all that much. And I just really like making my Goliaths the biggest and the dumbest. And so I'll always drop like intelligence and cool. I'll just make them huge. And I just find it to be really funny because when your opponent sees a stat line like that where they're like, oh, these dudes are just massive, it kind of makes it so they have to use all the sneaky tricks against you. And I find that makes games way more fun where you're forcing your opponent to be clever and be sneaky, and you just have a wall of flesh that they can't really kill traditionally. I think it makes games really interesting. But if you're trying to win, strength 5, toughness 5 on all your dudes, like is expensive, but you can't really beat that. Honestly, it's so insane.
It's true. It's ridiculous. Go ahead.
With the Vatborn, I was trying to find it. The fearless but foolish. You're not very smart. It's -1 intelligence, but your cool goes up because you're just gonna fight until you die.
And that's one of the things.
Absolutely insane.
One of the things about Goliath is like the cool stat on them means that you really don't worry that much about bottling. Like it's something you just kind of if you've got a small crew, you're just gonna play through it because you guys all have great cool, and you can make it even better by making them dumber.
We don't need to outsmart doors and stuff anyway. We just open them and
walk through them without opening.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of getting your gang equipped, what's gear that you think works really well for the leaders and the champions? What kind of approach do you take to setting your guys up for success? Ed, we'll start with you.
Looking at just my most recent build, my Forge Tyrant started out with a power axe and a hand flamer. So this last gang I started with, I did a big experiment. I was like, screw it, my 1,000-point gang has 6 guys in it, and 2 of them, and only 1 champion. So they were 300-point leader and 300-point champion. So a hand flamer and a power axe is what I started with my Forge Tyrant, armored undersuit, furnace plates. He also had a respirator because I sort of knew my opponents going in, and it was an Ash Waste campaign.
Oh yeah, very important in Ash Waste.
And then for my champion, I did something a little bit different, and I did a heavy stubber with a suspensor and a chain axe. And because it's actually very cheap, you can spend your first XP to get a 3+ ballistic skill, and 3+ ballistic skill on a Goliath that you just can't shoot off the table. So, and then again, armored undersuit, furnace plates. He did not have a respirator, which was probably an oversight, but and then I gave pretty typical, my Forged Tyrant had nerves of steel, just because I don't, he's got a short range template weapon and a power axe, so he needs to get up there, not get pinned. I gave Unstoppable to my champion, which just kind of lets you reroll your dice when you're making recovery rolls and stuff. But honestly, he was a beast. Everybody was afraid of him, especially when you hit that 3+ ballistic skill. And then beyond that, it's a lot of stub guns and either axes or brute cleavers, or the hell are they? The spudjackers, right? So just dudes with a short range pistol and something to beat on you with. And then when I got enough credits after the starting gang, I saved up and I bought a second melee champion that I did him as an unborn and let him have infiltrate so he could run around and cause havoc in the backfield until everybody closed up.
All right.
But even at the end of the campaign, I still only had 7 guys, although I did have vehicles that outside of the initial 1,000 points.
For sure. All right. Flo, how about you? What do you like for equipping your guys, your leaders and champs?
Two versions I tried out. The first one I used him as a 2+ ballistic skill heavy bolter guy in the backfield. Try to give everybody cover fire that everybody can run into the front and then do what they do best. And the second one I'm using at the campaign now is just I would say it's a medium mix between close combat and stuff. So he's using a chain axe and a bolt gun. We just planning, or we used to plan, we use from the White Draft the extra way you can have this gene smithing where you can have 4 weapon points. So we might swap weapons later to renderizer and some plasma pistol or something to get him more into close combat, but still got the punch through the plasma pistol.
All right, Caleb, what about you?
Personally, I like to stick with the Goliaths having the whole like forge made equipment look. So I really like just throwing stub cannons on all of my shooting guys, even though they're not really that good. They just look cool. I like a revolver cannon.
That's
and then,
I did the exact same.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
for their cost, they're pretty good. Strength 5 with knockback is they feel your opponents feel it.
Absolutely. I think that they're more.
Sorry. I was
Oh,
just
no, go
going to say,
ahead,
I
go
think I'll disagree about that. I really love the look of stub cannons, but I've always been disappointed whenever I try to use them.
That's closer to my experience with them, but I like that it's the thematic like house weapon.
They look cool.
Oh yeah, I just always like to equip my guys where like everyone's a jack of all trades at minimum, so you're always gonna have a gun, you're always gonna have a melee weapon because a Goliath with a melee weapon always like nearly always wins unless you have a purpose-built melee fighter coming to kill him, which you'll still hurt him. But within that jack of all trades, you got to purpose build your guys. So you got your shooters and you got your melee guys who are working in cohesion. So shooters, just throw stub cannons on them. They can shoot people out of cover, so they're easier to get to for your melee guys with the knockback. You're pinning folks, which makes it easier for your melee guys to get them and not get shot, stuff like that. And your melee guys, just, I don't know. You don't have to go crazy if you don't want to. 2 melee weapons, they'll kill most things. If you really want someone to kill a brute, you can have a Stimmer. They'll always murder like every other brute or champion or leader in the game because like 8 attacks on the charge, I'm pretty sure that's busted. Or just give a champion like the basic champion, give him a renderizer, he'll kill something. It's terrifying. But the rule I always like to follow is like your leader has a 3-up ballistic skill, I believe. Make sure he always has a gun that shoots. And then if you need heavier firepower up front, just go for combat shotguns because they're better than bolt guns in my experience. And they also have that template. So just in case you're not confident in your shooting, you can still shredder ammo a hallway. Other than that, cheap stub cannons, they always do the job really well. Knockback's pretty valuable. Or, I don't know, if you're bored, auto guns work great.
What about you, Rob?
I'm actually going to give a shout out to like the GW official build for the leader. So yeah, when I built my leader, it was before House of Chains came out, and I just built whatever looked cool. So I went with the stub gun Plaz combi and then the power hammer. And yeah, most of like the official leader builds from the boxes that GW does are not great or not super exciting, but I think that works really well. Yeah,
probably all I built.
Because you got the ballistic skill 3 up for the plasma pistol, so you can toast people close up. And then the hammer is just really nasty. It'll crush whatever you get close to.
Yeah, I like an energy
yeah,
weapon for House Goliath. It's
Yeah.
not, most of their guys can't really take them, but yeah, that's
yeah. It's thematic and it works, does the job. And then yeah, for champions, like a cheap and cheerful champion, I like grenade launcher and chain axe combo. You shoot, and then if they get too close, you charge them. You can do a little bit of everything.
all right.
And it's also worth noting that the plasma pistol stub gun combi weapon is probably like the best combi weapon in the game, because it's not super expensive. And if you have like a bolt gun, plasma gun, or whatever the other ones are, you're never going to use the bolt gun, and so you're wasting so much money. But in this case, if your plasma gun gets jacked up or runs out of ammo, a stub pistol works fine, because you're a Goliath and you'll just kill them in melee.
All right. So obviously we've got our basic leaders and champions, but stimmers are kind of they're a unique thing to House Goliath, and they've got kind of their own thing going on. Do you guys use them? Do you think that they fit well into a gang? Do you like the equipment they come with, or do you kind of go a different direction with them? And we'll start with you, Flo.
I use them. Yeah, when we have fun games, I use mostly 2 of them. The setup I play them is with paired pulverizers and 1 shock whip. So he was versatile and 3 inch more to get into close combat. It's quite nice. And then first round with the shock whip. If then something's left over, you charge with the paired pulverizers, plus combat stash and stim slug. So yeah, the whirlwind or the freight train, arrives to your destination then sooner or later.
Caleb, how about you?
I think stimmers are like incredibly fun. I think they've just had so many like unique aspects to them that no one else really gets. And so I think they're a very much moderation built weapon, whereas like you don't really want to bring 2 of them in like a campaign, because they're just going to kind of not be able to be used as much. But if you bring 1 that has so many uses, is like you can kill brutes with it, you can kill leaders and champions with it who are outfitted for melee or durability. You can kill just about anything with it, and it's also a very durable dude, so you can make him the biggest distraction Carnifex in the world, and even if he doesn't close in, the rest of your gang just killed everyone. So he just got shot a bunch and had a good day, and he's not going to die. So I think they're super useful, but I'll never take more than 1. And it doesn't matter, grenade launchers or pulverizers. I like the pulverizers, but grenade launchers are really goofy on them too.
It gets a little silly when you're shooting rapid fire grenade launchers.
They're so funny.
It's like, oh, all right. Well, you definitely should not have left those guys near each other, because they're done. Rob, what do you think about stimmers?
Yeah, I've only ever run 1 and with the pulverizers, but I think with Goliath, because you have comparatively few guys compared to other gangs, I think it's kind of a good idea to have like 2 big, like high level threats, and I like to have one of them my leader, because it fits the narrative. It fits to have the big burly guy as one of the big fighters, and then Stimmer makes a really good secondary one. Yeah, and then you basically just, like a missile, you just fire them at the enemy. If they stop 1, then your leader gets in, and vice versa.
All right, and Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when the box first came out, I built the pair, but for me, definitely it's a 1 per gang kind of deal. The grenade launcher, the twin link grenade launchers, is absolute mayhem, but I find that I do just fine with the grenade launcher specialist, and definitely prefer the renderizers on my stimmers. But I've got another box, and I really want to start experimenting with some different builds on them. I'm not sure what direction I want to go with that, but presently, when I run 1, it's just the paired pulverizers. And again, like I think like Caleb said, right? Like when you set that model on the table, everybody just wants to shoot him. They want to blast him off the table. They focus way more effort on taking that one guy out and it really opens up the rest of your gang for maneuverability and getting set up to do what they do.
All right. So when it comes to kind of gangers and juves, do you go for numbers? Do you go for good equipment? Do you go for combat? Do you go for shooting? Caleb, we'll start with you.
When it comes to gangers and the juves, I always just go for like affordability. So I'm always going for like, stub cannons, auto guns for my shooters. Everybody's gonna have a cheap melee weapon, as long as it's not the maul. The maul's garbage. But like any other like fighting knife, axe, whatever, they're gonna do great with it. So there's never any reason to stress about your gangers too much because they're just there to close in and kill or pin. Like that's all you really need them to do. And they're so genetically hopped up anyway that they're gonna be fine. Like
Yeah, that's always
you don't need fancy toys.
the thing that kind of when you get into close combat with like a non-close combat character that's a normal character and you're strength 3 against toughness 3 and you just sort of are like tapping each other and nothing's happening. When a Goliath charges in at strength 4, toughness 4, it's just like, oh no, this guy has no weapons and he's about to beat me to death with his bare hands.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing I'd really think of other than like respirators if you're doing Ash Waste or you're fighting a lot of Eshers or something, only other thing that I'd really think is pretty pertinent is if you can afford it, I'd try and give everyone Stim Slug stashes because they're so good. But
that's good,
otherwise.
All right, Rob, what do you think for gangers and Jews?
For regular gangers, I like combat shotguns a lot. I think they're one of the best like basic weapons in the game because they're just really brutal, and the fact that you can put down the template really helps out a lot. And then backup stub gun or an axe or spudjack or whatever. Stub guns for everybody though. Like that's kind of my mantra for all of Necromunda. If you can take a stub gun, take a stub gun.
Yeah, there'll
be a situation, +2 to hit at close range is.
Yeah, that's really helpful for a gang that has poor ballistic skill, like, and especially when they're a close combat gang, because you're trying to move up as much as possible, and you're gonna get close, but you're not always like, because if your opponent is smart, they're gonna position themselves just outside of your charge range, and that's when you kind of pull out the gun and do work.
Yeah, and if you get pinned as well, that gives you something to do because you can stand up and shoot. But if you have no guns, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, stub guns are a beautiful weapon, and I always stick them in every list pretty much because they are they're cheap and they do exactly what they say. It's just it's a slug that you just point and whatever you hit, they might not die, but it will hit them. Ed, how about you for gangers and juves?
I like the Brew Cleaver. So it's +1 to hit in melee, and it has disarm. So if you're making the attack and they do survive it, hopefully they're not coming back with, they're coming back with unarmed attacks. If you roll right, they're fairly cheap, and then a stub guns, just like everyone else said, right? The +2 to hit at short range, even though it's really a short range, is nice, and they're just affordable. Throw furnace plates on them, gives them a little durability, armored undersuit. If you get some experience points behind them, and want to really keep them alive. But that's kind of standard. When it's like you get your main guys, and then you just get this like the stuff that they got to earn their props. but until then, you get the cheap equipment, but they make good use of it.
And Flo, what about you?
Ganger wise, I stick to stub cannons and normal shotguns, and mostly I have the specialist for the beginning with a bolt gun to have some long range firepower. I know it's a quite expensive mix, but still. And for the juves, I stick them like mostly one with Brew Cleaver and a smoke grenade together with one of the stimmers to have him as a bullet magnet. The stimmer keeps on longer and reaches his destination. And then the combat shotguns, because the ballistic skill is not the best, so get them close and personal and then use the template to get the job done. That's the way I use them.
Makes sense. All right. So, what about the prospects, the Forgeborn, the redheaded stepchild of the Goliath gang? Do you guys like them? Do you use them, Rob?
Yeah, I think they're kind of like I don't use them as prospects, but I use them as the base for my aforementioned trash goblin because they're the only thing in the gang with a base movement of 5. Because most other gangs have got a juve with +1 movement compared to everybody else, but yeah, it's the only thing you have with movement 5 base. Yeah, so just basically purely for that, and then you can gene smith them to make more regular type dudes. You know, if you want like some bounty hunter or someone that's joined the gang and then they're a good base for that. But as a prospect, I've never tried them out.
Fair enough. Ed, what do you think?
I honestly haven't used them that much. I've a couple of times. Their speed is great. But when I was messing with them, I was playing with their like special weapons, which are just suicidal. You know, so because what is it? It's the Storm Welder. That one's a weird one, and it's unstable.
Yep.
No, yeah, unstable, and it picks a random target.
It's I can't remember the name of that rule, but yeah, it actually. So yeah, my friend played the ogres, and they have a bunch of those welders on them, and it's kind of annoying to like figure out exactly how that works. I think it's only randomized if you miss, but then if it's then like each shot is randomized on its own, but if you hit, it's not randomized. It's a little.
It just felt really weird.
It's a weird weapon. It's one of the more confusing rules interactions.
You know, and so whenever I get a box, I just kind of like I at least build one of each sort of like standard. And so, you know, when it comes to the heavy rock saw, it's a cool weapon, man, but it's 120 credits. And just so makes them not terribly affordable in that format. Now, that said, throw some, you know, build them with their stub guns, some frag grenades, a cheap melee weapon, and speedster them out there. I like this whole trash goblin idea that Rob had. That sounds like a really good use. And like, what's their point cost? Base 35 credits. Like, a horde Goliath army would be a pretty scary thing, and they're still toughness 4. They don't have the strength, but they're still hard to take down, right? So, but I'd like to play with them more, but I have not messed with them too much.
Fair enough. Flo, what about you?
I use them as base for the unborn models because they're like not that muscle. They're like slim and not well nourished, so use them for that. And game-wise, play-wise, I used in the last campaign 2 of them with combat shotguns because of their speed to get them as distraction first. Then plus the Stimmer, so this was always this 3 guys rush them forward to see what the enemy picks up first, combat shotguns or the Stimmer, mostly the Stimmer. But no, like more playable, not really. Just stick with the normal juves or with gangers instead of them.
All right, Caleb, how about you?
Me personally, I love them. I think they're hilarious. I think I have 2 roles for them where either they're just my coup de grace guys because they're fast, so they just run up and they just curb stomp people and they level up pretty quickly because of that. Or I'll use them in my fun way where I just outfit them with like the expensive arc welder, the rock saw. I just make them the most suicidal kamikazes I can because they're cheap. And as long as I win, or as long as I don't bottle, I get my equipment back if they die. So I don't care. I can buy another guy. He's like $10, whatever.
It's a very Goliath way of viewing the Forgeborn. Like, yeah, you know, if they don't die, then they weren't Goliath. They weren't strong enough.
Yeah, it's just a human missile, and it's so funny to just. No one suspects it because they're these skinny little looking dudes. Even if it's holding something big, people are like, whatever. It's no big deal. It's kind of like if you see a Goliath with a rivet cannon, like, whatever. It's like this short range, goofy little thing. But if that Rockstar, that Arc Welder gets up there, it's gonna do a lot. Like I'm pretty sure you can kill an Ambot with that thing in one turn. Like it's so goofy.
Yeah, if
And
you
so
get
just
lucky.
just turn him into a suicide.
All right. So what about later in the campaign? Is there anything you kind of wait to buy? Anything that any gear that you really like, or kind of equipment unit combo that you really like for later in the campaign, Ed?
So the great thing about Goliaths is that they are so freaking durable. Really, eventually, when guys start gaining XP, I tend, even, your regular juves and gangers start getting them armored undersuits to just give them a little bit better save, give them a little bit of longevity, stim slugs, right? If you can't afford to start with them, anybody that you want to get into melee, like give them some stim slugs because that's the uh, while we are very competitive and even dominant in melee in an early campaign, later in the campaign, the curve, doesn't go always in our favor. So making sure we stay ahead of that curve is really good, and giving as many stim slugs as you can is definitely helpful there. But honestly, instead of equipment, I tend to just buy more Goliaths. Save your money. Guys drop, like Caleb was saying, we get to keep our equipment, which is always great. So buying another Juve, another Ganger to just start building your numbers. Because, when you get those scenarios and they're like, oh, custom selection 10, and you're like, I have 7 guys, right? Like, so being able to be like, putting 10 Goliaths on the table is pretty substantial. So I do tend to lean into guys and then making them more survivable. Their initial weapons usually continue to do the trick.
Makes sense. All right. How about you, Flo?
Mostly I stick with better armor to get them survivable up. Gang wise, it always depends on the gangs that I have in the campaign. In the last one, we had lots of quarter guys with flamers, and even more flamers. So the hazard suit was one of the favorite things I got for, especially the melee ones. And then drop rig for the grenade launcher guy if he's way up and there's no one around you can shoot at to get him down. Or mostly I stick with armor to get them up, like mesh armor or armored undersuits and stuff like that. Because depends on the campaign, depends on your enemies, what they have on the field and what they're up to.
For sure. Caleb, how about you?
I agree with both of those 100%. I think grabbing like extra dudes is always useful. Armor to make them more survivable. All of your basic like gang equipment list is like super powerful. So I don't really find the need to buy anything other than like stim slugs, smoke grenades, especially because smoke grenades you just close the distance. They can't shoot you. That's huge. But other than that, my favorite thing to do is if I can find anything weird and goofy, like Xenos weapons from the or the black market or anything like that, I'm throwing those on everywhere I can if I can find them. Because like no one expects a Goliath with like a Kroot rifle, but that's like the funniest thing
Crude
because you can just
rifles are
have
good.
really goofy things. They are insane with Goliath too, because you have
Yeah.
a one-shot bolter, and
Right.
then
And then
you
a
get
close
stabbed
combat
with a
weapon.
halberd.
Yeah. Yeah. With versatile. Very very good.
Or if you even like the chaos weapons, like that, like, they're already basically a spawn when you start with a Goliath. Like I said, you give them a chaos rifle or a little knife or something, it just gets funnier and funnier from there. And so I play them very orky, and so the more goofy shit you can have, excuse my language, I just think it gets so much better.
Indeed. All right, Rob. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. Like more bodies and some fun toys. Grapnel launchers are pretty good to negate your movement problems. And then other than that, crocodiles for everybody. Sunk crocs, as many as you can, because they're crocodiles.
Yeah, the sub crocs are wonderful. I do wish that there was a good like third party model option out there. They're really I've looked around a lot and I can't find one. So you got to pay the Forge World tax for it, which is kind of rough. But uh, it's
If
a
you 3D print, actually, there's some really good STLs.
oh really? I haven't found any, but I also haven't looked in a while. For my current set of Goliaths, I actually wound up I'm proxying like a toad. Like it's like a plague toad model, but the actual like model as it was sculpted is like significantly smaller than a plague toad. And I printed a few of them at the actual size, and I was like, oh, this is wrong. I need to upsize them for my plague toads. And so I had these little leftover like toads, and I was like, you know, actually, I feel like if I was choosing between which is scarier, a crocodile or a toad the size of a crocodile, I might be more scared of the toad. Because they got that range.
Very reasonable.
So I decided to use them for my gang, but eventually I'm going to get one of the official Crocs because they are a beautiful model. Then okay, so what's your approach to playing with the gang? You know, kind of how do you arrange your guys? You know, what's your sort of strategy on the tabletop to kind of outmaneuver your opponents? Is there any scenarios or gangs that you particularly struggle with that you think certain tactics are necessary to beat? And we'll start with you, Flo.
The gang I struggle the most with is Fanzar, especially when they're going with this Surfing USA list with lots and lots of guys on the boards. And then the scenario, I don't know the name in English, where you have to get into the gang's stash and collect their money and steal their stuff. So with the loot boxes, that was the word. So you just flew forward, grab the boxes, go back to the board, and you have to run over the whole board, get shot at all the time. That was where I struggled the most with. Everything else, scenario-wise, is mostly just move forward, get over the board, get to the guy in close combat, and then beat the crap out of them, and then grab the loot and go home. Just like plain and simple. Hammer on the nail, and then it's done.
Indeed. Caleb, how about you?
Me personally, my main strategy is always that little synergy where it's make sure your shooty guys are pinning people, make sure your melee guys can move up. I think group activations and smoke grenades are super, super useful for that. Group activations especially, because if you can pin a dude, get him down, and then just run up with melee, like all in one, it gives you so much insurance in case something goes wrong. But as long as everything goes right, you're winning. And like knockback on a stub cannon can knock him into a better spot for your guy. Just all sorts of little things like that. Otherwise, like Vansar, I struggle against them. They just have so much really good shooting available to them at all times that it's hard not to get pinned, because even if your dude has like traits that make it so it's harder to pin him, stuff like that, you're just getting shot so many times. You have to always be in cover. You have to always be throwing those smoke grenades out. And it's just a pain. But I don't think you should. I've never struggled with any mission specifically. The pit fight one though, always win. Can't lose.
Yeah. I definitely think the Vansar being able to give their juves las guns, so they can just have an ungodly number of that sort of 18-inch +1 to hit fire. It's just brutal. Like you're just gonna get constantly be making those cool checks on your guys with nerves of steel, and you will eventually fail if you have to take it off. Rob, how about you?
You need to learn to use cover. Like, you're tough and you're strong, but pinning is your enemy, so you need to get shot as little as possible. Like plan a route from your deployment zone to the enemy, and try and avoid charging down big open corridors and stuff like that.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Ed, how about you?
Scenario-wise, like any scenario that requires speed. So the ones where you in and out, or you start in the center and you've got to get off the table or a certain table edge, like those ones can be challenging. And then certain terrain setups can be challenging if there's just not enough cover for you to move to and from, because it can look like there's plenty of cover and then you move 4 inches, right? Like, so you know, using a lot of double moves to get from cover to cover, which you've got to do. And then what was the other part of the question?
Is there any like scenarios or matchups that you struggle with?
Matchups. Okay, so yeah, Vansar. Everybody, Vansar is problematic. That is especially when I like to have my unborn infiltrator. It just starts in their backfield because it wreaks a lot of havoc, and they'll usually die. But it also usually gives me a round or two to uh, get some movement up there. For whatever reason, this last campaign, I actually enforcers. We had a couple of game. I had a couple of games. We had 2 enforcer players where it was just a slap fight, like just in melee, beating each other back and forth, and nothing happening. Flesh wounds here and there, but it's like, wow, we just did a 3-round melee. Crazy, right? And it you know, didn't always go in my favor either. So that was a little bit of an eye opener there. Stupid armor.
And I guess, do you have any kind of other advice, anything that, you know, you kind of, a new Goliath player feel like they need to know that hasn't come up in these questions? Caleb, we'll start with you.
Honestly, I'd say just have fun with it. You're probably playing the most versatile gang out of the house gangs. You get like your shooting isn't as bad as people like to think it is. Your shooting's on par with every other gang. It's just you don't have the shooting skills. But a 4-up is still 50% chance, right? You give them a las gun at 18, they're still hitting on threes. So you can make shooty Goliaths, you can make melee Goliaths, you can do whatever you want. And then you have so much adaptability with just everything at your disposal with like the gene mods and everything. So just have fun and just try weird stuff, because weird stuff will always win. Because if somebody doesn't expect something, they can't defend against it. So if you're trying to win, be goofy and have fun. If you're trying to just have fun, do stupid stuff and have fun, because it'll always work out.
All right. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say if you're just starting out, don't get too stressed about gene smithing. Like, there's a lot of really nasty combinations, and I'm sure you can like research on the internet and find broken combos or whatever, but you don't need to use that much of it. Just use it to kind of tweak some of your characters to whatever your narrative is. Like, you know, this dude's bigger, or this dude's a bit faster. Yeah, just have a good time, and always bring stub guns.
Ed, how about you?
You know, I would say understand your strengths and weaknesses, and the reality is Goliath weaknesses aren't nearly as bad as some of the other gang weaknesses. You know, Caleb was saying it's a very versatile gang. And then I like rule of cool, right? Like, if it's something that you think you want to try out, right? If you want to build that 350 point champion, I mean, be aware he's gonna have a lot of guns pointed at him. But just have fun, lean into the durability, right? Like, because you can actually, not that it's good to frustrate your opponent, but you know, being able to just keep coming after you take your licking is intimidating. So, you know, lean into the strengths and have fun.
Excellent. All right, Flo.
There's nothing else to mention. It's like, well, like everybody said, like the rule of cool, just build what you want, play, have fun, and especially when you're in campaigns, make sure you have the right people in the campaigns, that everybody sees it this way as fun, to not like, I have to win, I have to focus on the best, the worst, the meanest guys possible. Yeah, just like have fun with the games and the builds and what you can do out of the models, especially with gene smithing and everything else.
Yeah, I definitely view like a campaign game as like there has to be like a social contract to not grief people, because like there's room for rivalry, there's room for like playful ribbing and like you know, kind of going back and forth with someone, but like people who take it too seriously will throw off the vibe, and then like nobody's gonna want to come back. And this game, really, the fun of it is that sort of building narrative, that gang having its own story as they kind of, you know, they engage in whatever they're doing, expanding their empire, tearing down the hive, whatever it is that happens to be going on in that particular storyline. Like you know, you don't want to get too mean with each other. This is not high stakes gaming.
If you want a more competitive experience, genuinely just kind of play Kill Team, because this is like D&D but 40K, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Kill Team is very much built around that, and once you kind of get the rules down, like it's a very snappy, fun little game, but it doesn't quite have the same character that Necromunda has, where it's a, you know, that sort of you could do anything with Necromunda, as I'm trying to do with my various expansions. I'm basing my orcs off of the Goliath rules, so I hopefully will have those out over the summer. All right, so we've talked about Goliath a lot. Modeling. Are there any conversions you really like? Any kind of kits you like to mix in, or STL files, whatever it is? You know, what do you like to do for kind of customizing your gang? And Rob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the Corpse Grinder Cult kit is basically like an unofficial Goliath kit. They're almost exactly the same scale. You can swap arms and stuff pretty easily. They look pretty good together, and they give you loads of chain axes. And you can use the little, whatever the initiates are called, the little guys as juves or whatever. So yeah, that's basically a great kit to get.
That's a good one, because yeah, the juves are beefy even though they're sort of normal scale. So that's a good call. Ed, how about you? What models do you like to mix in?
So I haven't kit bashed a ton of my core Goliath gangers, but the maulers, so the vehicles, I really did not initially love the build on those things. This looked a little bit hokey, so I actually took the wheels off of a Cargo 8, which are huge, and put two giant front wheels on one of my maulers, so it looks like a huge lawnmower because it still has the grinder in the center.
Right.
And then my second one, I just had a friend that had, like, it's a weird, I think it's a AOS, some kind of chaos vehicle wagon wheel that looks rad, and replaced the center. And then I jacked up the back end so that it actually had clearance for being an all-terrain vehicle. So those, and I strapped extra fuel tanks on the back of them, and just like beefed up my maulers quite a bit. Because while I was like, conceptually it's cool, I was like, it just felt like it was a little lacking to me. So those are totally piecemeal at this point. But no, for my Goliaths, like, I've got them back here. The other one I didn't much care for was the Forge World Zerker. And so I ended up pulling a miniature out. I'll send a picture, but it's this crazy beefed up, hulked up monster that was out of a board game, just a board game piece for a game I didn't play, but had some cool miniatures in it. And he's huge. So I think it's my profile pic on my Instagram, but
Nice.
I'll send you a picture.
All right. Flo, how about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I use from Age of Sigmar. The Slaughter Priest is one of the models I used as a Stimmer before I got hold of the original ones. Then for Bionics, I use mostly Space Marine stuff, especially from the Hellblasters. You got this metal arm with the plasma gun. That's quite nice. Then from the Orc box, from the Beat Snagger boys, there's also some size-wise nearly fitting bionics for legs and arms, stuff like that. But mostly it's like size-wise, it's hard to find stuff For juves and Forgeborn, I use the jackals because they look quite nice, especially with the last month's model of the month from the Games Workshop stores. I get hold of a few of them, and also like from the Chaos sprues, the chain axes. That's the stuff I use for kit bashing stuff.
Yeah, the jackals are.
Yeah.
The jackals are like a really fantastic base for doing juves because they are just so mean looking, and you could definitely imagine the kind of all the spikes and all of that fitting very well in the Goliath aesthetic. Caleb, how about you?
If you want to stick with like GW for kit bashing and stuff, I think Gene Stealer cults have just so many options for you. I think Space Marine Scouts also, they're pretty beefy, and so I think they fit with Goliath pretty well. And then Stormcast Eternals, I think they have a lot of really good options for like forge plate looking kind of stuff if you just paint it differently. Because you still have chiseled abs, but now they're just metal. I think that's fun. And just all their little orcs and stuff like that. But I'm a huge 3D printer, and I think there's so many options in STL files that it's pretty crazy. And like you might have to dig a little bit, but even simple things like Archvillain, I believe it's Archvillain Games. They just started releasing sci-fi stuff. And I think all of their sci-fi sets could easily work with just a different paint job. And there's another one. It's called Loot Games, I believe. It's not Loot Studios. They're a different thing on My Mini Factory. They release a lot of Necromunda themed stuff, and they have some really good Goliath models. So if you 3D print, it's limitless, man.
Yeah, one of the files that I really want to kind of mess around with more is the Maker's Cult has these Tempest Legion. They're like kind of like scouts, like Space Marine scouts, but they have male and female models because I think the idea is that they're Thunder Warriors, and I don't think Thunder Warriors had like I think they could be any gender or whatever. And so they've got these like really bulky, beefy like female models that are in kind of light scout armor, and I used one to do. I made a model of the. It was the first of the Glandhounds that Fabius Bio made. I can't remember, or even if she wasn't the first, she was the greatest of them or whatever. But I read the Fabius Bio like books, and I was like, wow, this is like we don't have anything to kind of represent this character, and then this Patreon for Maker's Cult, they added this this sort of scout armor looking stuff, and they have just the only models like for female Goliaths I've seen that weren't like Gamak, I think, does a few, and they're very like kind of a little. He does everything over the top with like the way he kind of sculpts bodies, where it just gets a little much for me. And the heads are also a little funny on his model, so I don't really like his stuff as much. So but like there was not a ton of options for kind of female models until I came across these. I haven't actually had a chance to kind of convert any of them yet, but I really want to. And I really liked Scout Bikes to do the Goliath on a mount before the Maulers came out, because they have the right size, and I found getting the legs onto the Scout Bike was not too difficult. So that was kind of one of the things that I did. And there's tons of stuff out there for them. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on. If you'd like to give a shout out to anyone, we can go around and do that. So Ed?
I'll give a shout out to my local Hive of Braxis campaign players. We had a great starter campaign, and I'm looking forward to all the gaming that we've got coming up later this year.
Awesome. Flo?
No, not really. Most of them are not online on the big channels here, so
Fair enough.
nothing else to say.
Caleb?
Shout out to my boy Keegan. He's the one who got me into a lot of things, and he helped me develop Necromunda a lot. There's a long time where we were the only two people playing it, so I played all of my games against him nearly. So shout out to him.
And Rob?
Yeah, I'll be self-centered. I'll give a shout out to myself. Yeah, I'm on YouTube. Digital Wastrel is my channel. If you finish watching this video and you want to watch more Necromunda, go and check me out. Yeah, thanks for having us all on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if anyone wants, links to any blogs or Instagrams or anything, just I'll have them down below in the show description. So thanks so much for coming on, and yeah, good luck and good gaming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks as always to Carl Casey at White Bat Audio for the show's music. And thank you to my patrons. You guys make all of this possible. And of course, if you too would like to become a patron, you can do so for as little as $2 a month over at patreon.com/domerunners. And of course, don't forget to check out the podcast for more Necromunda goodness. I have a bunch of episodes about Goliath on there too, wherever you get your podcasts from. Everybody out there, please stay safe and don't forget to change your paint water.